You know that feeling, right? That knot in your stomach when you start thinking about the future. There's so much pressure to have everything all mapped out. Well, today, we're going to dig into a really unique perspective from a particular text about how to handle that anxiety. And it's not about planning harder, it's about letting go.
I mean, really think about it for a second. That pressure to have the perfect 5-year plan, to know exactly where you're headed, it's a heavy weight to carry, isn't it? And when life feels uncertain, man, it is so easy to feel completely lost. That exact feeling is what the source material we're looking at today is all about.
This quote just nails it. It frames that anxiety not as some kind of personal failure, but as something a lot of us go through. According to this text, the real stress comes from the fact that we just can't see how our plans are going to turn out. It's a pretty powerful diagnosis of the problem. So, what's the solution it offers?
Okay, so the source we're exploring suggests something pretty radical. It says the answer isn't a better, more detailed, color-coded plan. Nope. Instead, it's about letting go of the need to be the sole architect of your future and embracing a totally different kind of guidance.
The central idea here is this metaphor of life as a pilgrim's journey. Now, a pilgrim is a traveler, right? Someone who's on the move, but doesn't necessarily have a map of the entire territory. The whole point is that maybe we don't have the wisdom to plan our own lives perfectly, and trying to do it is exactly what causes all that anxiety in the first place.
And this is the absolute core of the message. The source is calling for a huge shift from that anxious adult planning to what it calls childlike trust. It's basically an invitation to move from a position of needing to be in control to one of just relying on a higher power to guide your steps. So this whole idea of trust, it leads to a really key distinction the text makes. It lays out two fundamentally different ways to approach life: the path of self-reliance, we've been talking about, and what it calls the path of faith. All right, so the whole thing is laid out right here. On the left, you've got the path of self. This is where you're making definite plans, demanding to see the outcome, and the source argues this always leads to anxiety because you're only relying on your own limited wisdom. But on the right, you have the path of faith, accepting plans instead of making them, trusting the journey itself, and relying on something bigger for guidance. Now, to make this more concrete, the source points to the example of Abraham. I mean, think about it. Here's a guy who was told to leave everything he knew and just go. He didn't have a destination to plug into his GPS, he just went, trusting he was being led. This is held up as the path of faith in action. But Abraham's story is really just the warm-up act. The source text we're digging into points to an even more central figure to show what this principle of faith looks like in its ultimate form. According to this text, Jesus is presented as the ultimate model for this way of life. The idea is that there was no personal master plan, it was just a daily acceptance of a divine plan unfolding one day at a time. And the implication for us is pretty huge. The antidote to future anxiety isn't that perfect 5-year plan, but this kind of daily trust in a larger purpose. So what are the stakes here? The source material doesn't just present this as a nice idea. It gives a pretty stark warning by drawing a parallel to a historical account. It basically asks us to think about what happens when you choose that other path. 40 years. That's the number the text uses to show a massive delay. Ancient Israel was supposedly right on the edge of entering this promised land, but they ended up wandering in the wilderness for 4 decades. So why? What went wrong?
The source points to 4 key internal reasons for this big delay. First, unbelief, a simple lack of trust. Second, worldliness, getting too focused on material things. Third, unconsecration, which here means a lack of real dedication to their purpose. And finally, strife, or just internal conflict.
And this is where the source brings it right into our lives today. It makes this bold claim that those same issues, unbelief, worldliness, lack of dedication, and strife, are what have kept humanity stuck in a state of suffering for years. It's a challenging idea, for sure, suggesting that our collective journey is being held back by these really personal internal things. So, all of this brings us back to us, right here and now. Why is this trust so important? What's the real end goal of letting go of our own plans? The text builds to this incredibly powerful idea. It's saying that if we could see our entire lives from start to finish and really understand the amazing purpose waiting at the end, we would actually choose the exact path divine guidance is taking us on. So from this viewpoint, trust isn't blind at all. It's actually a shortcut to the best possible outcome, one we just can't see from where we're standing right now.
And that leaves us with this final question from the text. If the path forward is one of trust, and it leads to a destination we would actually choose for ourselves, then what's holding us back? Is it our own perfectly crafted plans, our anxiety about the unknown, or
is it, as the source suggests, the very same unbelief and strife from that ancient story? It's a question that really gets to the heart of how we choose to live our lives.